Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the only place where we take these massive stacks of sources, sometimes dense, sometimes delightful, and today just dogmatically financial, and we boil them down.
Right down to the pure, concentrated insight you need for the decisions you have to make.
We take all that information overload and we filter it. We give you just the essential nuggets.
And this week, the sources. They are something else. They're cold, they're unique, and they are utterly unforgiving.
Yeah, this isn't some dusty historical archive or a chapter legend.
No, not at all. Our source material is a complete, ruthless, internal redline audit. And it comes straight from the coldest, most unfeeling bureaucratic machine in the entire galaxy.
The Imperial Munitorum Departamento Analytica.
That's the one.
And they're not auditing tax receipts. They are peeling back the skin on the angels of death themselves.
Subjecting the new 500 worlds expansion doctrines, all those exciting new ways Space Marines can be organized, to the brutal, cold scrutiny of logistics and high finance.
It's incredible. The core question this whole document is trying to answer is just so simple, but so profound. What happens when the Adeptus Astartes, the literal definition of martial glory, are assessed solely on their return on investment?
Exactly. We are diving deep into the tactical and, frankly, the much more important economic viability of these new formations.
So for the next hour, you need to forget everything you know about glory, honor, valor.
Forget all of it. This entire process is driven by cold, hard financial data. The Munitorum's perspective is just. It's unyielding. They operate on this singular absolute axiom that defines every single expenditure in the Imperium.
And we, as the analysts looking at this data, we have to adopt that perspective. Before we can even touch the assets, we have to get inside the auditor's mind.
You have become the auditor.
So let me introduce you to the official opening of the file. This is the mandated introductory dialogue for one senior auditor, Valerius Kraus.
Please proceed. This is the source material itself.
Initialize an audit sequence.
Okay.
Subject. Civilian iterator known as Auspex. Reference file. New Space Marine Detachments, 500 worlds, Titus rules analysis.
So they have his whole file.
Classification. Optimistic propaganda.
Ah.
Audit status. Pending liquidation.
Right. That's the level of unfeeling objectivity we have to maintain for this. The audit treats heroism as just a marketing term for resource expenditure.
A marketing term.
Our mission today is to scrub all of that inefficient sentimental flavor from the tactical ledger. We're here to look at the numbers.
We're quantifying ROI for every single asset. We're going to dissect the Orbital Assault Force, the Bastion Task Force, and the Ultramarine Reclamation Force.
And we're going to determine if they're reliable blue-chip stocks, things that generate consistent compounded returns.
Which is?
Logistical fraud that must be immediately liquidated.
And the principle that's driving this whole thing, it's repeated on every single page of this Departamento Analytica memo.
It's simple. Efficiency is the only currency accepted by the Golden Throne.
If it isn't maximally efficient,
then by their definition, it is fraudulent.
Okay. Let's start by defining that philosophy. The ruthless, brutal mindset that underpins this entire review. The economics of total war and sunk cost. It's a terrifying way to look at the world.
Well, Munitorum's perspective is shocking, mostly in its scope. They don't see a battle, you see. They see a balance sheet.
A balance sheet.
The audit details the cost of a single fired bolt shell. Yeah. To them, it's not some trivial munition. It is a massive, traceable, sunk cost.
An investment.
A logistical, temporal, and industrial investment that spans light years and, in some cases, centuries of manufacturing effort.
You really have to think about the whole supply chain to get it. It's not just the metal for the casing.
Oh, no.
It's the cost of maintaining that forge world for millennia. It's the cost of the labor, whether that's a servitor or a human. The sheer energy used to forge the casings, the rare earth minerals inside.
And the colossal cost of warp transportation.
Yeah.
Can't forget that.
Which is incredibly hazardous. It often requires, the sacrifice of astropathic choirs. Just navigating hostile territory is a cost in itself.
Exactly. Every single stage is a quantifiable expenditure. So, their core doctrine states that the moment that shell leaves the barrel, that expenditure must yield a verifiable, violent liquidation of enemy assets.
Of equal or greater value.
Equal or greater. Failure to do that isn't just a tactical mistake. It's not a simple miss. The Departamento Analytica classifies it as fiscal negligence.
So let me get this straight. If I spend, say, the strategic resources equivalent to 200 points, maybe an orbital bombardment or a whole high-value unit firing its volley,
yeah.
and it only manages to kill 100 points worth of enemy assets, That operation just resulted in a net capital loss of 100 points.
Correct. Your return on investment is negative 50%. You made a loss. The Munitorum quantifies reliable ROI, not unpredictable heroism. Heroism means nothing if you have to spend 3 of your assets to destroy 2 of theirs.
They demand a sustainable, positive ROI.
Which, in their world, means destroying more value than you expend, period.
That makes every single dice roll, every strategic move, a financial decision.
Precisely. And to quantify that ROI, to assess the viability of these new Space Marine detachments, the Munitorum relies on 3 core analytical pillars. We have to understand these pillars if we're going to understand their final conclusions.
Okay, let's break them down. Pillar number 1, liquidity analysis. And this assesses tactical flexibility.
Right. Liquidity, just like in the markets, is how quickly an asset can be converted into useful currency. On the battlefield, it's a measure of speed and adaptability.
So can the asset, a squad, a tank, whatever, can it be instantly moved or repurposed to react to what they call market volatility?
And market volatility here is just the chaos of war. The enemy shifting their position, unexpected reinforcements showing up.
Or a sudden change in the mission objectives. The targets you need to liquidate are constantly changing.
Right. If a unit takes 3 turns to plot across the battlefield to react to a new threat, it has a dangerously low liquidity rating. It doesn't matter how tough it is.
It's a frozen asset.
Units that are slow or stuck or tied up in some prolonged, low-yield fight are classified as frozen capital or illiquid assets.
Yeah.
The moment a high-value asset like a heavily armed tank gets locked in melee by a handful of cheap cultists,
It's yielding 0 returns, its capital is frozen.
indefinitely, and that is the death of Munitorum efficiency.
So liquidity is basically the tactical speed and adaptability you need to keep your capital flowing towards the highest value target.
It is. Now, pillar number 2, solvency stress testing. This one measures survivability versus cost.
This sounds like the really hard calculation, the metric that separates the truly robust units from the paper tigers.
It uses a crucial metric, points per effective wound, or PPEW. This is the core solvency test.
Okay, PPEW.
We're trying to judge a unit, not just by how tough it is, but by the financial efficiency of every single wound point it can absorb before the cost of that unit outweighs the benefit it delivered.
Okay, let me unpack that for you listening. If a unit costs, say, 200 points, but it only survives long enough to inflict 50 points of damage, its solvency is terrible.
It was an over-leveraged investment. You paid too much for too little return.
Exactly.
And this test separates the assets that reliably hold their value under pressure, the durable, predictable blue chip stocks, from the ones that promise a high yield but carry unacceptable risk, the fragile junk bonds that will probably be liquidated instantly when the market crashes.
The Munitorum doesn't care if you won a specific fight.
No, they care if you paid an exorbitant premium to win it, which resulted in a net fiscal loss for the Imperium.
That's brutal. And that brings us to the third pillar, risk profiling, which you said is just pure dice mathematics.
This is where they explicitly reject hope. Strategy cannot be built on prayer. It can't be built on high-variance luck.
So they analyze the probability curves of every action.
Every single one. Any strategy that relies on high variance, and their key example, the one they cite universally, is the unmodified 9-inch deep strike charge.
Which has what, a sub 30% success rate?
Sub 30%. That is classified as gambling, prohibited. You do not risk the Emperor's capital on a coin flip. It's forbidden.
But on the other hand, strategies that are built on consistent statistical buffers, things like full rerolls or guaranteed modifiers or even fixed movement values.
Those are investing, mandated. The difference is the reliability of the dividend.
It's all about predictability.
Precisely. The goal is to move the outcome away from the whims of chance and into the realm of predictable statistical consistency. Any strategy that needs the enemy to fail 2 tests or relies on a 30% success rate is immediately marked for liquidation.
Which brings us directly to the baseline, the standard against which all these new speculative detachments are being measured, the Ventress factor.
The Universal Space Marine Rules, the Gladius Task Force.
This is the index fund of the Adeptus Astartes. It's the gold standard, the A-plus benchmark that every other portfolio has to outperform.
And the constraint is absolutely ruthless. If a new specialized detachment fails to mathematically outperform the universal application of the Gladius Task Force,
The baseline.
it is immediately categorized as logistical fraud. You have to demonstrate a clear, calculated mathematical advantage just to justify your own existence.
So why is the Gladius such a solvent A-grade portfolio? The audit says it's built on two core pillars of fiscal stability. The first is the combat doctrine economy, which provides instant liquidity.
These doctrines are liquid assets. You can spend them turn by turn to dynamically alter the engagement. Take the Devastator Doctrine.
Advance and shoot.
Logistical liquidity in motion.
Let's quantify that liquidity, though. If a heavy asset like an Eradicator unit moves 5 inches and shoots, that's predictable. But if it moves 5 inches plus an average 3.5-inch advance, it's now covering 8.5 inches. That single movement phase instantly increases its threat acquisition zone by, around 60%?
And that 60% increase is the difference between an asset being out of range, yielding 0 returns, or suddenly engaging that high-value target you absolutely need to liquidate. It maximizes threat exposure without the opportunity cost of losing your shooting phase.
Maximum liquidity.
And then you have the Tactical Doctrine.
Fall back, shoot, and charge.
This prevents what the Munitorum calls asset freezing.
Right, we talked about that. If a powerful 200-point unit is locked in combat by some cheap enemy chaff, a 50-point unit of cultists...
It's frozen capital, it's yielding 0 returns. The Tactical Doctrine immediately liquidates that tie-up. It allows that capital to be instantly reinvested into a high-value target somewhere else. It ensures your assets are never bottlenecked.
But the real core of its statistical reliability, the reason Gladius provides such consistent returns, comes from that second pillar, the Oath of Moment buffer.
This is the Army rule. It grants full rerolls to hit and wound against one designated priority target.
The mathematical significance here is enormous, isn't it? This is the baseline standard for all damage output.
It is. If you're assessing the viability of any unit, you have to assume it will operate at this level of reliability against its main target.
So explain why that reliability jumps so high. A basic ballistic skill 3+ unit, that hits 66% of the time. 2 out of 3 shots. How does the reroll rule get you to nearly 90%?
It's all about reducing the chance of failure. If you hit 2 out of 3 times, you miss 1/3 of the time, so 33%.
Okay.
But when you get to reroll those misses, you get a second chance to hit, which is 2/3 of that remaining 1/3.
So 2/3 of your original 33% failure rate now convert into hits.
Correct. The only remaining failure is the 1/3 that missed both times. So your final failure rate is only 11.1%.
Which means your success rate jumps from 66% to a consistent, predictable 88.8%.
You are virtually guaranteed to hit.
Nearly 90% reliability against one target. That single rule removes so much volatility from the damage calculation. It makes the outcome almost a sure thing. That consistency is gold to them.
And this immediately raises what they call the redundancy error flag against any new specialized rule.
What's that?
Any detachment rule that offers less than full rerolls, like, say, just reroll hits of 1, is fiscally flawed from the start. Why would you pay points or sacrifice flexibility for a fraction of a statistical benefit that the Emperor already provides for free against your key target?
It's an unacceptable double billing for a service you already have.
Exactly. That is the gold standard for statistical performance.
Okay, so now that we've established the overwhelming efficiency and reliability of the Ventress factor, we can proceed to the interrogation phase.
Let's see which speculative asset falls hardest in the audit.
We are moving into phase 2. Interrogation of asset Auspex.
And we begin with the first speculative portfolio, the Orbital Assault Force. This detachment markets itself entirely on the Alpha Strike premise, using drop pods to instantly deliver violence.
The civilian consensus, the Auspex dossier, sees this as fun. It lets unusual units deep strike and execute a dramatic attack. Let's enter the interrogation chamber and review Charge 1.
Let's hear it.
At 13.30, the suspect claims drop pods allow for fun alpha strikes with vindicators.
Fun. The Munitorum does not recognize fun. We recognize efficiency. Paying a 70-point delivery tax for a tank that can drive itself is not fun. It is fiscal negligence.
Wow, that is a brutal summation. So the audit just treats that 70-point drop pod as a pure sunk cost. It's damning.
It's illiquid. It has negligible offensive output. Its only function is delivery. It's a shipping fee on cargo that may or may not perform.
And if the shipping cost exceeds the profit margin of the cargo?
The entire venture is bankrupt before the enemy even gets to fire back. The audit's primary finding is that the delivery tax is unsustainable for the majority of eligible units.
Okay, let's break down the delivery tax analysis from the audit. Where does it start?
Let's take a Hellblaster squad. A high-yield asset costs 230 points. The drop pod adds 70 points for a 300-point total investment.
That's a 30.4% delivery tax. just to get them onto the battlefield.
The audit classifies this as high risk. It's barely tolerable, and only if they instantly achieve a break-even liquidation of enemy assets the moment they land.
But the efficiency, it must degrade rapidly when you move to cheaper units.
Oh, it falls off a cliff. Take Assault Intercessors, a 150-point squad. They now carry a 46.6% delivery tax.
Nearly half the cost of the unit is just this shipping container.
The audit's verdict is simple: fraud.
Fraud. Why such a harsh term? I mean, the unit itself is still valuable, isn't it?
Because you are paying almost 50% overhead for a unit that still requires a highly volatile sub-30% success rate 9-inch charge to be effective.
That prohibited gamble we talked about.
Exactly. If that charge fails, that 70-point sunk cost is completely wasted, and the asset is frozen outside of combat range. That level of risk for that tax is fiscally irresponsible. It constitutes gross negligence in capital allocation.
And then there's the mathematical redundancy error. The audit seems to reserve a special kind of disdain for this one, the Infernus squad analysis.
This unit carries a 43.7% tax, yet it's classified as poor, nearing incompetence.
Why?
Because the Infernus squads are equipped with flamers. They automatically hit. The detachment rule grants all units arriving via transport the benefit of reroll hits of 1.
Ah, I see it now. If the unit auto-hits, the detachment bonus is mathematically worthless. Zero marginal statistical gain.
You are paying a high illiquid tax to deliver a unit whose intrinsic properties already neutralize the primary benefit of the rule. And what's more, as we already established, if that unit targets an Oath of Moment priority.
The reroll hits of 1 provides zero marginal gain anyway because Oath already gives you full rerolls.
The 70-point sunk cost is illiquid, non-redeemable capital that often provides zero marginal statistical gain over the Gladius benchmark.
When once that drop pod lands, that 70 points of capital is immediately frozen. It becomes a liability.
Worse, it grants the enemy free movement. They could use charge slinging, using the pod as a guaranteed charge target to gain extra movement, putting them in a better position to engage the rest of your force. The entire drop pod strategy is fundamentally defined as a value trap. It demands a high cost for high variance, and it often results in statistical redundancy.
Okay, what about the stratagems? Are they designed to make this detachment functional? Do they pass the solvency test?
Let's see. Autosense coordination. For 1 command point, it grants lethal or sustained hits to units disembarking from a drop pod.
And the verdict?
Classified as a bankruptcy event. You are spending 1 CP just to achieve parity with benefits the Gladius task force provides for free, or with much greater efficiency through his own enhancements or doctrines. If you have to pay CP just to match the index fund, you should have just invested in the index fund from the start.
It's a premium expense for a common service.
Exactly. Then there's suppression strafing. 1 CP for a battle shock test at -1, which gives the enemy -1 to hit if they fail.
Seems useful on paper.
A massive liability due to double variance. It requires 2 separate volatile dice rolls to yield any returns. First, the enemy has to fail the battle shock test. Then, the resulting -1 to hit actually has to matter in the context of the engagement.
So you're basing your plan on 2 sequential coin flips.
A forbidden gamble. The Munitorum strictly forbids it. It's unacceptable compared to guaranteed mathematical buffs.
Even the key enhancement meant to improve delivery, Lords of Thunder, which costs 15 points for reroll charges, that still only yields a 47.8% success rate on a 9-inch charge.
It moves the outcome from a near guaranteed failure to a coin flip.
And we've established the Munitorum rejects coin flips.
Capital allocation cannot be based on high variance luck. They demand a minimum 80% statistical guarantee to justify spending an entire unit.
Okay, but even the auditors had to admit there was one glaring loophole, one feature that provided an unearned return. They mentioned the dedicated gunship enhancement. Let's look at charge 2.
Go ahead.
The suspect calls the orbital gunship rule tricky.
Tricky? No. It is victory point money laundering. You are scoring the same objective with the same unit repeatedly. It is the only reason this detachment is solvent.
So the auditors are calling this the infinite scoring scheme, and it uses the dedicated gunship enhancement, which is only available to a Terminator model.
This relies entirely on exploiting mission sequencing and timing. The crucial part is this. A Terminator unit arrives via deep strike. It executes a scoring action, say, deploy teleport homers, which immediately yields 4 victory points.
Okay, 4 VPs.
Crucially, the dedicated gunship enhancement then triggers, removing the unit to strategic reserves before the enemy can shoot it.
So the enemy never even gets a chance to liquidate the asset. It's an immediate, guaranteed return with 0 risk.
Correct. This generates VP revenue, which the Munitorum considers the ultimate currency, while retaining 100% of the asset's principal value, its points cost.
That results in an infinite ROI. You could score 12 to 16 VP over a game just by exploiting this loophole.
The Departamento Analytica views this not as a tactic, but as pure mission loophole exploitation. It's VP laundering. You're generating revenue without taking any risk at all.
And they mention one other thing, the Orbital uplink enhancement, which lets you redeploy 3 units after deployment.
That's categorized as insider trading for 25 points.
Insider trading.
Yes, information is power. Seeing the enemy's deployment and then shifting 3 of your key units instantly improves the initial efficiency of those assets without them even having to move. It reduces their necessary movement expenditure later on. That strategic pre-game flexibility is a premium asset.
So despite these 2 loopholes, the overall conclusion on the Orbital Assault Force is just a clear fail.
Failability. Unambiguous. The detachment is 200% less efficient than Gladius in raw damage output per point. That's because of the delivery tax and the redundant rules. Its only saving grace is exploiting scoring loopholes, which are themselves volatile because they rely on the mission structure never changing. We've established the catastrophic fiscal failure of the Alpha Strike model.
Okay, so let's pivot from a financial disaster to what you called a speculative bull market. Let's move to the Bastion Task Force.
Right. The core philosophy of the Bastion Task Force is very specific. It's about inflating the value of the normally low-yield battle line keyword, intercessors, heavy intercessors.
How does it do that?
By granting them permanent, always-on mobility, they can shoot and charge after advancing.
The initial Solvency audit noted that standard battle line units are, low-risk, low-return bonds?
Yeah.
You take them because you have to, not because they're wildly profitable.
Correct. So to make this detachment profitable, you have to inject powerful, elite, capital, high-yield assets into that low-yield battle line market. The core objective of the audit was to find a way to deregulate the keyword and apply that battle line subsidy to something far more violent.
And this deregulation leads us directly to the hero of the chapter regulatory loophole, the golden ticket. Let's hear charge 3. At 03.05, the suspect praises the Bastion Task Force for giving battle line units mobility.
He is burying the lead. He fails to mention the hero of the chapter loophole. This isn't about battle line units. It's about giving aggressors the speed of a jet bike. This is insider trading, and we are going to abuse it.
Hold on, wait. I thought the Munitorum was supposed to prevent market manipulation, not endorse insider trading. Why is Auditor Kraus so enthusiastic about this loophole?
Because the Munitorum only cares about maximal efficiency. If a temporary loophole exists that guarantees a higher, more reliable return on investment, the directive is to exploit it to the absolute maximum extent possible before it gets regulated.
So find the inefficiency and abuse it.
Exactly. The hero of the chapter enhancement, it only costs 20 points, and it grants the battle line keyword to a leader. And crucially, that keyword then propagates to the entire attached unit.
This is a massive market deregulation. An elite infantry unit like aggressors or blade guard, which can't normally be battle line, suddenly is.
We are applying the lucrative battle line subsidy, that universal advance and shoot charge rule, to premium elite assets. This arbitrage opportunity, exploiting a temporary market inefficiency, is the core of the Bastion bull market. It lets us take an asset that is naturally illiquid and make it hyperliquid instantly.
Let's dive into the aggressor bull market simulation. Let's analyze that increase in threat range liquidity. What does the math look like?
Okay, so standard aggressors are fixed assets. They move 5 inches, they need a successful charge. They max out at about a 12-inch threat range.
5-inch move plus an average 7-inch charge. They're predictable and slow.
Right, but the Bastion aggressor suddenly gains move, advance, and charge.
So what's the new total?
Their maximum effective threat range is now move 5 inches, plus an average 3.5-inch advance, plus an average 7-inch charge. That brings their total threat range to 15.5 inches.
That is a measurable 29.1% increase in threat range liquidity, just based on average dice rolls. And the significance is its tactical permanence.
The comparison to Gladius is critical here. The Gladius task force requires spending a command point or activating its single-use assault doctrine to get that burst of speed. The Bastion aggressor has a perpetual motion engine of violence that is always on for a one-time 20-point investment.
That completely changes the opponent's defensive calculation. It drastically increases the aggressor unit's liquidity rating.
And we also get what the audit calls the Auspex dividend. The detachment rule allows the battle line unit to mark a target which grants reroll hits of 1 against it for the rest of the army.
Pure synergistic profit.
Exactly. If the aggressors are the first to shoot, they mark target B, granting reliable returns against it for everyone else. This frees up the full rerolls of Oath of Moment to target A. You've effectively doubled your army's high-efficiency output. You're prosecuting 2 high-value enemy assets with massively reduced variance at the same time.
The audit also specifically noted that Black Templar Crusader squads are prime beneficiaries of this as well.
Yes, it transforms them into these highly mobile, terrifying waves of what they call penny stock violence.
Penny stock violence.
Cheap assets that move incredibly fast. And their sheer aggregate volume of low-cost attacks, combined with that permanent mobility, creates a guaranteed horde liquidation event. The liquidity grant makes otherwise disposable assets suddenly threatening.
Okay, let's look at the stratagems that fuel this machine. Light of Vengeance. 1 CP grants lethal hits or sustained hits.
Classified as a prime asset. This is crucial for solving the inherent low-strength issue of many infantry weapons. Lethal hits guarantee wounds, even when the aggressor's strength is lacking, allowing them to punch up against toughness 10-plus vehicles or monsters.
That's massive value inflation for 1 CP. It reduces the variance from poor strength profiles.
And then there's Guided Disruption. 1 CP to impose the pinned condition, which is -2, to move and charge.
How is that rated?
A high-value defensive asset. It's a mathematical disruptor. If an enemy unit needed a guaranteed 7-inch charge, slowing them down by 2 inches turns that into an impossible 9-inch charge. It forces the opponent to over-leverage resources and divert capital to deal with a unit that has unexpectedly bogged down. It gives you market control.
Now, this is where the Munitorum's preference for reliability should clash with this high-risk strategy. The auditors critique the detachment because it lacks the traditional defensive gold standard, Armor of Contempt.
Let's hear the charge.
At 01.56, the suspect admits there is no Armor of Contempt stratagem.
A critical admission. Without Armor of Contempt, your Bastion is just a target practice facility. The math confirms this is a liability.
For you listening, if you're not familiar with every acronym, what exactly does the absence of AOC, that classic AP mitigation stratagem, what does that mean for the unit's solvency?
It means incoming fire maintains its full destructive force. AOC typically reduces the enemy's armor penetration value. Without it, high AP weapons bypass your armor entirely.
So a unit of aggressors, they might have a 3+ save, but if they're facing a weapon with AP2...
that save is reduced to a 5+. The unit's intrinsic defensive value, its armor, is degraded by 40% immediately.
But the detachment does have Angel's Defiance. That grants -1 to wound against high-strength attacks. That feels incredibly durable against the biggest threats. So how can the audit conclude it lacks defensive layering?
Because durability has to be quantifiable and reliable against all threat profiles. Angel's Defiance is strong against high-strength attacks, which often have a low volume of shots, but the lack of the AP mitigation leaves the unit highly vulnerable to focused, high AP massed fire. Think concentrated plasma or heavy bolters.
So the strategy is a critical trade-off. They gain this unparalleled offense and liquidity, but they sacrifice the universal defensive safety net.
Correct. The Bastion strategy is classified as high-risk, high-reward. It relies entirely on offense as defense, using that increased threat range and enhanced damage output to liquidate the enemy's high-value capital before the enemy can exploit your defensive gap.
And if your aggressive strike fails to liquidate the target,
your asset will be instantly liquidated in return.
That sounds fundamentally at odds with the Munitorum's core axiom of reliability. So why do they rate a high-risk, high-reward portfolio as a conditional pass, especially when the gold standard is the low-volatility Gladius?
Because the sheer statistical gain provided by the hero of the chapter arbitrage opportunity is so massive, it offsets the defensive risk. The reliability of that 29.1% threat range increase, the ability to guarantee engagement, is seen as a more valuable immediate asset than the statistical durability from AOC, which relies on the enemy taking a shooting action first.
The Munitorum prefers proactive capital investment over reactive defense.
It's conditional because that high liquidity is entirely dependent on that specific loophole remaining open.
So if the hero of the chapter loophole remains unregulated, what is the final verdict?
Conditional pass prime asset. The rating is entirely contingent on the loophole remaining unregulated. If it's closed, the grade drops instantly to fail. The standard battle line unit simply cannot generate the necessary returns to justify the detachment's existence.
So the final directive is ruthless.
Maximize holdings and aggressors immediately to exploit this keyword arbitrage opportunity before the FAQ or data slate closes the loophole.
The most profitable asset is the one that's about to be outlawed. The timing is everything in this market. Now let's move to the third portfolio, the Ultramarine Reclamation Force. This one is designed to be the risk-averse choice.
Yes, the Reclamation Force is the safe hedge fund. Its focus is on static value holding objectives and weathering the storm. It does this via core rules that grant +1 AP and -1 to wound when holding objectives.
This detachment emphasizes capital preservation and objective control.
It sounds fiscally sound on paper, but low yield. The rules support static defense, sitting on objectives, rather than initiating the fight, and maximizing liquidation events. The key financial question here is a mathematical cost-benefit analysis of durability enhancements.
And this leads directly to the core durability audit, the Titus brick versus the Terminator block.
The audit tests whether it's more efficient, more solvent to purchase durability enhancements for a cheap unit versus just buying native superior durability in the first place.
The enhancement we're auditing here is the Seals of Reconquest. It costs 20 points and grants a 5+ invulnerable save for the bearer's unit. And this is declared a liability trap. Why such a strong rejection of a save enhancement?
Because the underlying asset is flawed. We have to conduct a rigorous PPEW comparison using the high-stress, high-volume plasma threshold stress tests.
So an incoming fire profile of Strength 8, AP3 damage 2, a common, efficient anti-infantry weapon.
Exactly. Let's analyze Asset A, the Titus brick. This is 10 assault intercessors plus a character with the seals. They are toughness 4 bodies with that new 5++ save.
Okay.
Against Strength 8 plasma, the T4 body is wounded on a 2+. It's a guaranteed wound. Their armor save is instantly degraded to a 5+.
So the unit is wounded almost automatically, and the 5++ save fails 67% of the time.
Correct. The calculated PPW points per effective wound is low quality. It sits around 12.5 points per wound. The enhancement provided minimal marginal gain because the fundamental T4 toughness breakpoint was just too low.
Okay, now compare that to Asset B, the Terminator block.
5 Terminators. They cost slightly less at 185 points. They are T5 bodies with a native 4++ invulnerable save against the same Strength 8 plasma.
The T5 Terminators are wounded on a 3+. That's a crucial breakpoint.
That T5 breakpoint means 1/3 of the incoming fire fails to wound entirely, regardless of the save. And their superior 4++ save fails only 50% of the time.
So this yields a slightly better PPEW ratio at 12.3 points per wound, but the wounds they suffer are of significantly higher quality because of that T5 breakpoint and the more reliable save.
The conclusion is the fraud of the seals. You spent 20 points to bandage a flaw that fundamental unit selection would have solved better for less capital.
Better capital spent buying native durability, like Terminators, than trying to bandage poor assets like Intercessors with an enhancement.
The Munitorum advises against making a silk purse out of a sow's ear. The only value the Titus brick has is as a target asset, absorbing high damage, low volume anti-tank fire efficiently by maximizing the waste of the enemy's overkill damage. If they shoot a high damage weapon at a low wound model, the damage is wasted, which is a form of asset liquidation efficiency.
However, the Reclamation Force finds its true value and its high rating in its stratagems. We established that the Munitorum loathes the 28% gamble of the 9-inch deep strike charge.
They do.
But Reclamation has furious dedication. 1 CP for +2 to charge and +1 attack.
This is an essential asset. It directly solves the high variance problem that led to the liquidation of the Orbital Assault Force. This stratagem converts gambling into mandated investment.
Let's run the math on this critical investment. We established the standard 9-inch charge is a miserable 28% gamble. 7 chances out of 36 dice permutations.
But adding +2 to the roll shifts that requirement down to a 7-inch charge threshold. That's a massive change in the statistical landscape.
That single command point instantly boosts success probability to approximately 58%.
You've more than doubled the probability of success with a single CP investment. That's an ROI of over 100% in reliability alone.
And if the commander then applies a single command reroll as they are permitted to do?
The reliability jumps even further. A 7-inch charge with a reroll moves the success rate to over 82%.
Over 82%.
This reliability, The ability to guarantee the chart sequence is why the Munitorum rates this stratagem higher than the risky damage buffs of the Orbital Assault. It is the ultimate low-volatility investment.
The ability to guarantee a critical maneuver with high reliability is more important than guaranteeing high damage that might not even connect.
Absolutely. The audit notes that guaranteed engagement is a prerequisite for guaranteed liquidation. If you can't get your assets to the target, their damage potential is irrelevant.
And what about other liquid assets in the portfolio? It mentions Ultramar Destiny, 1 CP for sticky objectives.
Sticky objectives allow units to maximize active capital. By marking an objective and then moving off without sacrificing victory point revenue, the unit's liquidity rating increases instantly.
They're no longer frozen capital.
They can be instantly reinvested into the battle line without sacrificing VP generation. This addresses the inherent contradiction of the static detachment philosophy.
So the final conclusion on the Ultramarine Reclamation Force is a solid, if maybe unspectacular, result.
Solvent P grade. A safe, low-yield hedge portfolio. Fiscally sound, prioritizing capital preservation and reliable maneuver over exponential returns. It is the safe savings account option, designed for commanders who demand consistency over spectacle.
We have completed the interrogation of all 3 portfolios. Let us execute the final mandated conclusion, delivering the auditor's ultimate judgment.
Let's hear the final word.
The Auspex dossier is 90% hype, 10% math. The Munitorum advises, ignore the drop pods, buy the aggressors. Audit closed.
The summary of final ruthless directives for the Lords of the Munitorum is unambiguous. It's pulled directly from Table 4.1 in the audit, detailing which assets to hold, liquidate, or invest in.
Directive 1, Orbital Assault Force. Liquidate.
Scrap the drop pods entirely. The fiscal disaster of the 70-point delivery tax and the fundamental statistical redundancy errors they create is indefensible. The only permissible investment is in the dedicated gunship VP laundering scheme, a loophole we expect to be regulated soon, so the investment window is narrow.
Directive 2, Bastion Task Force. Invest heavily. Speculative.
Maximize holdings in aggressors immediately to exploit the keyword arbitrage opportunity created by the hero of the chapter enhancement before the FAQ or data slate closes the loophole. This asset is volatile due to its lack of defensive mitigation, but the exponential returns from its constant mobility justify the high-risk classification. It is a hostile takeover asset.
And Directive 3, Ultramarine Reclamation Force. Oldie.
Safe, low yield.
Fiscally responsible. Commanders must avoid the seals of Reconquest Trap Better Biz. PPEW is achieved by buying native durability. This is the portfolio for risk-averse commanders, prioritizing a guaranteed 58% charge over the 28% gamble of other deployment methods.
It's truly fascinating to just zoom out and look at the core finding of this entire audit. Despite all the grand narratives of the Imperium, the glory, the sacrifice, the core economic structure prioritizes one thing above all else.
Reliability.
The 58% guaranteed charge success of reclamation is infinitely preferable to the spectacular 28% alpha strike gamble of orbital assault.
It shows that even in a galaxy that's defined by chaos and desperation, the efficient bureaucratic machine demands systems that work 8 or 9 out of 10 times, not systems that win dramatically 3 out of 10 times. It rejects volatility.
And that leads directly to our final concluding thought for you, the listener, to explore as you apply this mindset to your own resource decisions. We all have finite resources, right? Time, energy, money. So apply the Munitorum's lens to your own life.
First, where is your personal 200% inefficiency loss? What are your personal drop pods? Those high-cost, high-overhead expenditures that look cool or feel traditional, but prevent you from generating guaranteed returns.
If you spend precious time on low-yield activities that deliver redundant information you already possess, that's a redundancy error.
You could also consider the PPEW model in terms of time management. Are you investing 200 units of effort into a project that only yields 50 units of real-world value? Are you paying too high a delivery tax and stress and overhead for a small result?
And most importantly, are you relying on gambling, prohibited, or investing, mandated? If a daily habit or a long-term goal has a 36% overhead and still relies on a sub-30% chance of success, it's fiscal fraud. You are relying on hope, not probability.
The goal, according to the Munitorum, is to maximize your personal ROI by choosing low-volatility, reliable investments of your time and effort.
You have to strip away the narrative flavor, the fun, and analyze the true input cost, and find true efficiency. You must find your own personal equivalent of that 82% charge success rate and only allocate your capital toward those guaranteed dividends.
We hope this deep dive into the cold world of imperial finance helps you liquidate your personal liabilities and focus on assets that provide predictable, sustained returns. Until next time.